I'm sorry?
David.
Okay, David, and then Jim. All right, thank you.
Let's see, what we are going to require is once you do select on a contractor, a couple things, get copies of your other permits over to us.
They're in the file already?
Okay, with the notice of commencement, get your contractor in line, copies of certificate of liability and workers' comp.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, and not last but not least, East Hampton Town contractor's license.
Okay.
All right?
No problem.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
Next, we have John Kern, 165 Lazy Point Road.
Good evening, John Kern, Law Office of John D. Kern, Esquire, PC, appearing on behalf of Lori M. Petrosky, who's a potential purchaser for lot number 16S. Actually, it's a 16S at Lazy Point. We have been gathering together our documents for approval. I had spoken with the seller and the purchaser, and they were hoping to try to close this month before next year. Of course, we had not fully submitted everything yet, so I did some scrambling and got everything into you that I could today that I actually have. I believe there may be a packet before you. We were able to submit the affidavit of domicile, the proof of residency for the purchaser, the ownership. We submitted the letter from the seller requesting the letter of intent to sell, the contract of sale. The publication has been submitted, but it has not been published yet, and it has not fulfilled the required 3 weeks of publication. So at this point, I don't have an affidavit of publication. I do have an email from the East Hampton Star from Russell, who is in charge of the legal notices, saying that it has been received and it has been paid. So really, at this point, I'm sort of asking a favor if there might be some type of preliminary approval or preliminary review for approval or something of that nature, a little bit outside the box.
Yeah.
You have the papers you can use.
May I'd like to interrupt just for one moment for the record, sir. Mr. Kern, may I please have the SCTM number again?
Oh, the Suffolk, yes.
Of the county tax map number,
Can you get
please?
that off of the contract.
This gives you all time to think about.
241 Shore Road. Did not include it on the contract. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I have the lot number on that. Unfortunately, it's not on the letters either.
I have it right.
Oh, you do?
Oh, you have the lot?
Wait a minute, that's not it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Looking at something different. I do not have it.
All right. Hey, I think we may be getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Mhm.
The clear fact is we have to go through the process. You have to notice the property. You have to provide us all the supporting documents, and then we'll vote on it. I don't see this as a problem. You got to notices for 3 consecutive weeks?
Yes.
East Hampton Star, so it's going to go in this Thursday,
Yes.
the following week. So really, by our first meeting in December, will you have cleared your 3-week threshold by that time?
Your first meeting in December is the which day?
It's what, 12? 12th.
December 12th.
Okay, so
December
that's
12th.
December 12th, then we would be at
Maybe 1 week off.
Thursday.
Maybe going in that Thursday.
1, 2, it seems that 3 weeks, 3 weeks would actually be December. No, Thursday is going to be the 1st. So 3 weeks would actually be the 15th.
Yep.
So.
Okay. So why don't we get all of the other stuff together? We still have, do we have a second meeting in December?
No, just the 12th.
Okay. Our counsel is not here tonight to basically back us up. What I would say is that we table this thing,
Mhm.
plan on coming back in on our first meeting. We'll probably be in a position that we can give you the green light. I understand what you're trying to do here in terms of closing in this year.
Yes. Mhm.
But we didn't create this problem.
No, I understand. There are processes and procedures. No, I absolutely understand. I appreciate the courtesy of the board and all the help of the,
Yeah, no, it seems like you're
Staff.
moving pretty quickly. Because we just got your paperwork today, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
You really, you're flying right along here.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I'm trying to. Yes.
So we'll see you on the 12th. I think that's going to be the best
Okay,
situation.
perfect.
All
Thank you
right.
for your
Hey,
time.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Have a good evening.
He's not even there. All right, that's it for public comment. Do we have any new business?
Just for the record, you have zero calls on the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Old business, annual resolutions. Now,
I'll just start by saying Allison had asked us to come up with some suggestions so that we could get the resolutions in place for the first meeting of the year for the organizational meeting. So I know I submitted a list of things which I sent to everyone that I thought of. And I don't know if anyone's read them or thought about them, but I am happy to just enumerate them. And I know John as well, you also submitted suggestions for the resolution. So I will skip over a couple of things. I had suggested that we discuss fees, perhaps increases for docks, revetments, moorings, fish traps, and pilings. If that's something that we have in the past discussed the increases, but I don't know that we've really actually had serious conversation about it. It seems we've been pretty steady with those fees for several years, if not decades. Then I went on to the resolution 2022-21A fee schedule for general applications for moorings, docks, walkways, fish traps, freestanding pilings, duck blinds, dredge material, other structures and staircases, kayak fees, shoreline fences, lazy point leases. I don't know if these are things that anyone has considered, those fees. Impound fees, shellfish tags, shellfish bags. I think our shellfish bags are a nice $1 fee. Let me see, going along, we can skip over that.
Fish tags, and they're gonna cost us 25 cents each. We sell them for 50 for $5.
Okay, maybe if we can have a list of the, type up a list of those prices for the fees so that everyone can see what they are currently. That might be of help to go forward and discuss if we wanted to raise or increase the prices for those items or any of them.
That's a good idea, Susan. Just to
Right,
see 'em.
actually see what the fees are today, Arlene and Allison.
Got that information. It's in the 2022 resolutions, which
I got
was sent
that.
to us.
I got that right.
The price list.
Yeah.
All right, so we go back and I think Allison and Arlene sent out the last year's resolution, so we can take a look at that. And maybe at our next meeting, we can talk about the fees, whether or not to increase them or not for those items. Number 6 on my list was the Trustee Harbor Management Committee for 4-year terms. This is to appoint 5 members of the public at large to be appointed to the Trustee Harbor Management Committee for 4-year terms. And as they perform regular and valuable service to East Hampton, there would be a stipend of $50 to be provided to each member of said Harbor Management Committee from funds held by the trustees for each monthly meeting attended by said member. I know we discussed this last year, but I don't believe it was ever resolved because we have not appointed anyone from the public, to my knowledge, for this position. So I wanted to know if we wanted to discuss that for 2023 going forward. Maybe this is something that we discuss at our next meeting.
Yeah, my understanding of that, Susan, is we've tabled this resolution for 2 years running. And that committee was disbanded before we got on the board, I believe.
No, we were in existence. We had basically reconfigured a group that was on Harbor Management Committee. I want to say it lasted, I'll tell you exactly how long it lasted. It lasted as long as it took Clearwater Homeowners Association to get their dredging permit. And that basically was the sole interest in getting on Harbor Management Committee. Once that was accomplished, the individuals that were involved sort of faded into the
But that doesn't
into the
mean we
mist.
can't just reorganize this in a different form. It doesn't have to be like this as long as we all agree.
Well, that's fine, but I think it needs to be defined pretty clearly because it's.
I know, right now, who
There's
is
no
it, me and
definition.
you?
I don't know.
No, it's me. The only ones that I'm sure.
It was you and it was Jim and it was
John.
Rick when he was here and John.
Okay, Rick's not here.
Right. So
John.
now I think this needs to be discussed and voted on. And as Francis suggested, maybe reorganize it in a different manner and we vote on it.
Well,
We would vote on it at the
we've
annual.
got to discuss that to
The
figure out what
organization.
that means.
Right.
I know, I'm saying discuss it and then we come back. But these are the things that I see that are in question in my mind. So I had that, and also the moratorium on the docks that we just voted on last meeting. It's been extended, as we know, for another year, and the resolution needs to be updated with the current date for the extension. Currently, it's not been updated, so that's easy to do in
I
our.
think that resolution, personally, I think that resolution should just be eliminated because we just passed the resolution with all the dates and the extension. We passed an extension with dates. So I don't think we need to do it in the beginning of the year resolutions again.
Okay, it serves as a good reminder.
I thought that was a question for Chris, but
Okay. Then I have a resolution 2022-27. Allison has been hard at work, as we all know, on the inspection of docks that are currently in place. And I'm wondering and I'm hoping that we will extend her fee for that work and effort, which is in, I said, in the resolution under 27, whereas Allison Felenius is qualified and familiar with all aspects of these matters, hereby hired on contract basis to work on organizing, coordinating, and overseeing the analysis per resolution 2021-11-22 of structures in trustee waters for the period of the moratorium or until the trustee board has deemed the process complete. Be it further resolved that Allison Felenius be paid maximum of $15,000 for this work. Since we've extended it for another year, I think we should discuss and just confirm that will go forward.
wouldn't the language that, or if this work, or until this work is complete, cover that? You just read language that said, or until this work is.
Right, but we have to, complete, but it was extended, so shouldn't we make sure and be precise and include it in this year's resolution?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I mean, it's not a big deal, but I think,
Well, the fee also has to be looked at. I don't know how much we've spent so far, but we'll have to get that
Right.
and make a decision on how much farther we want to go
Right.
with the fee.
okay, well, that's something that I have noted. And right now, from me, there are a few other things, but not at this time. So that's it from my list for the moment of suggestions.
I looked through them and I had basically many of the same resolutions as you just did to revisit. One you didn't mention was the first resolution, which which states that with the clerk's issues, there were a clerk and 2 deputy clerks. And I think there should be more definition in that resolution of the functions of the clerk. It's really kind of a cursory sentence there. It refers to specific responsibilities or something like that, but it doesn't really lay them out. In subsequent resolutions, there are many, about 10 or 12 that do refer specific things to the clerk or the clerk and deputy clerks. I think one thing that might be missing, and that we might want to define, is and this may not just apply to this particular resolution, it may be a separate resolution, but maybe the responsibilities of the committees and the people within the committees and the sort of the chain of command, if you will. And we brought this up at the last meeting of getting things done in a timely fashion and things like that in committee, but there's nothing in any resolution here that really lays out, what the responsibilities of the committees are. I thought that might be something that might not be a bad idea to have a better definition of.
Well, you and I discussed that, John, when we were discussing other things, and I'm in agreement. I think the language should be more specific to give us all an idea for new people as well coming in the future, that we all know what our responsibilities are with regard to the committees that we serve on and how we work as a committee. I think that's important. It helps make us a better board. And as I'm not sure, but I think, Jim, you actually had mentioned at a last meeting that we need to fulfill our work in a timely fashion. There was some issue that had come up, and I think
But it's just a matter, we do get applications that come to our office, get distributed to the respective committees. And sometimes those applications sort of go fallow in those committees and they don't move forward. And sometimes we're missing critical moments. Okay. If there's a ZBA hearing coming up on that project, it's probably important for us to have sort of some opinion of the project before it gets to a public hearing, certainly within the time frame of the period that allows comment. Projects that are either entirely within our jurisdiction or significantly, we should be acting as the lead. So when those things come in, we should be prepared to weigh in and have an opinion on those in advance of the ZBA, in advance of DEC, and know that there is a chance that there's going to be modifications that are going to be made along the way. But, when these projects are occurring completely within our bottom land, I think it sets a good precedent, because we have found ourselves more or less at the mercy of some of the other agencies over the years, where they have seized the lead agency status and kind of held an application that was important to us hostage. What I'm talking about is the algae harvester in Georgia Pond. So listen, I don't know whether you have to put that in the form of a resolution. As John's mentioning, I see the benefits to that, because what it does do is defines everybody's role here, and perhaps defines the leadership roles of, let's say, the deputy clerks on these committees. So it doesn't just blindly fall to members of that committee.
And things like, you mentioned the timeline of the, our review and ZBA review and things like that. That should be clear too, whose responsibility it is to find that out. I mean, should that come to the committee already, or is it the responsibility of the committee to go seek that information
Well,
out?
I mean, I don't know what our responsibilities are. All I can tell you, John, is how I've tried to do things. If we get an application, let's say, that comes to Beaches, comes to ponds, I will field that application, contact the applicant or the agent, set up an appointment, convey that appointment date and time to the other members of the committee. We try and meet with the applicant. We get it, we get the information they've supplied. We get eyes on the project in itself. And our role, I feel at that point, is to report back to this board. We all vote on these things. We all have a hand in this. But I think it's important that the committees try, it's not always going to be the case, try and develop some consensus going into one of our general meetings.
I think that it's very important also. I find when there is something that comes before the board, often for the first time outside the committee, those members of this board do not always have the information. So I like to ask for, even if I don't serve on the committee, if it's on the agenda coming up, I'd like to know what that information is so that I can review it and have some intelligent a concept of what that project and application is about. Also, I know in the former years, for instance, the planning department or the ZBA, they would send out notice to us to let us know that something was coming up in advance of the actual hearings. And I think that's important for us to get that information so we know what projects are coming before those boards and whether or not they pertain to us. I found those to be very helpful when they were coming. I don't know that we receive that anymore.
I don't know why we fell between the cracks. When I first got on the board, us being notified was really a very hit and miss thing. We got into a routine. In fact, I think it was Brian Frank that set us up with that, where we were getting the notices, much like we get the village ZBA notices. Now, Susan, I think we may be asking a lot for them to tell us whether we should be interested or not.
No.
That's really on us.
They send out the whole list of applicants, and then it's up to us when we receive that list to go through and to pick out those applications that will pertain to us. That is on us, yes.
And the policy, just to bring some of the other board members up, is in the past, what we do is you get notice that there's a hearing coming up on this. The town, you go into town hall, you pull the applicant's file, you read the EAF, find out what the ZBA's or the planning's position is on the application. It gives you an opportunity to talk to the planner, get a little background, and then convey that information either to the other members of the board or it comes up at our general meeting. I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect situation. The purpose of committees is to not bog the entire board down on every application that may interest us. That's the point of having these committees, is so that members are not necessarily meddling in other committees and gumming up the works. But I think you're right, Susan. It is important for everybody to be sort of up to speed. And I think we're moving towards that.
I would think it would help to have this enumerated.
Yes.
So we all are looking at the same, sheet of paper, if you will. It's great to talk about it. And we've talked about it in the past and we're talking about it now. And, I still think it's something that if it's written down, it's something that can be referred to by everybody all the time, not necessarily just when we're talking about it and explaining it to one another.
Included in an office handbook, if you will, or in some kind of binder that we can go to. I think that, John, what you're articulating is just an organizational aspect of the committee that makes us as a board work more effectively, and we know what our responsibilities are, as opposed to just having an open blanket with no real definitive guidelines. So I am 100% in favor of your suggestion.
And I'm not sure that this is something that goes in as a resolution. I think it's more, as Susan just said, more like a handbook of procedure that
It could
we
be.
should put together.
Could be, but I mean, it's, I did.
It'd be helpful.
6 of one, half a dozen the other, the way I look at it. It's a document, whatever, it's a piece of paper. If it's read at the beginning of each year and it's in the list of things that we read at the beginning of each year, it's there. I mean, we could have a separate handbook of procedures too. I don't know what's the best way to do it, but I just think committee
I've gone through all
structure and
these.
responsibilities is something that's a little lacking in terms of clarity.
I mean, I've just been going through all these multiple times, and that sounds more like a procedure manual than what this is. Nothing in here lays out how you do things. It's just that this is what we're going to do. But,
Well,
if you want to put it in
the-
resolution form.
Even the responsibilities, though, can be enumerated
Responsibilities, I
in
agree.
a resolution.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mhm.
It'd also be helpful for new trustee members when they join the board.
Right. Going forward, because we won't always have the same board from year to year, or I should say 4 years next time and 2 years.
Anything else, John?
Well, I just had a few, there's a few housekeeping things. People's United Bank is not People's United Bank anymore. These little things have to be cleaned up. I assume they'll be gone through and check for that. One was Resolution 11 talked about meetings, and I think the Zoom protocols have to be incorporated into that resolution, which I don't think have been in the past, but seem to be, part of the meeting structure going forward. That's one I picked up. Then the fee structures, I could just go through these really quick, just to put the thought in everybody's mind, I guess, at least what I had thought of. One thing that's not in there that I've heard talk of over the years has been adding a fee for an application to legalize. That may not be the right way of putting it, but what's the right way of putting that, Arlene?
Legalize, is someone that built.
Legalize an unpermitted structure.
I mean, right now it's $100 fee, just like any other application. And I think the town has a $600 fee for something like that. That's not in our fee structure. We might want to put that in at a higher rate. We have the current.
The fact that we cannot assess penalties is the main reason to do that. Yeah.
We cannot assess penalties.
Right. We don't have the ability to penalize. So the only way we could possibly do that would be through a fee structure.
So maybe that should be an additional line in that fee structure resolution. The current $100 application fee, I don't know if that's something we want to consider bumping up to $125 or $150 or something like that.
What was that?
Current $100 application fee
Application fee for what?
for anything.
Any applications?
We waive the fee in many cases if they're environmental projects or something like that.
Okay.
Moorings, they're currently $10 a foot for residents, $25 a foot for non-residents. That's something we want to consider bumping up. I think they've been like that for quite a while. There's a $50 administrative fee for a large boat, a boat in the large boat grid, mooring grid. Does that want to go up? Do we want to raise these fees, 50% or percent or something like that, I guess?
Well, this is essentially what you're reading out individually with the fee structure is essentially covering the resolutions that I had identified earlier. And I think that we need to discuss those separately, maybe at the next meeting, and everyone sees what the fees are currently, and then we come and vote on this next meeting. But I think that those are important and to identify, because I don't think they've changed in many years, those fees.
Can we find out when they were changed last?
Yeah.
I know we changed some, not that
The only one we changed
Inflation.
last year was the minimum dock fee.
Yeah.
Minimum dock fee. That's the only one we changed last year.
The dock fee and the mooring fee were the same. They were both $1 a foot like 30 years ago. And the mooring fee at least went up to $10 a foot and the dock fee stayed at $3. So, definitely.
Is there ever historically a reason why fees haven't increased over time with the trustees?
For exactly the reason we're having this discussion tonight is you come up to the resolutions for the year. You've just changed the dates on the resolutions and they get read. As the change, and if the changes haven't been made. Maybe the most streamlined way of doing this, rather than to burden the entire board with this now, is for John, do you want to sit down with Allison and Arlene and run through what you're proposing? And then have them circulated to the board members and we can communicate back to you guys. And that way,
Well, yeah, I guess, but I'd like to get a sense from the board of how they feel about raising fees in general. Because
I think there's places where it makes sense.
One opinion, you know?
Yeah, no, but I think it makes sense. But you know what? When you're going through this, you're reading from your prepared notes. Everybody's sitting here. In some ways, it puts the entire board at a disadvantage. I think it's going to be one of those things. We have the resolutions that we've had in the years past and that we're updating this year, is to go through, make a proposal, and or we could have somebody else sit in with you guys and, kind of come up with little ideas. And then just
go over it at the next meeting.
And then
point by point.
Yes, that is precisely what I suggested when I read the resolutions.
can have the resolutions in here.
I think we should have a list of all the current prices of fees and then have members of this board, perhaps the finance committee, sit down and discuss the fees as you think it would be appropriate to either raise them, leave them as they are, and then submit that to the board and we can vote on that at the next meeting. But I do think that it should come from the finance committee and we as board members can then respond at the meeting. But you give us the current fees and then the proposed increase of fees that you think are acceptable and should be in place.
I wouldn't describe it as increased changes, proposed changes. So we may find some of those fees.
One thing though, I'd like to just get a sense of is staircases. There's a line in there, other structures and staircases. But we don't necessarily impose fees on all staircases. And should we?
Well, John, I think we've had this discussion in the past.
I don't think it's ever gone anywhere.
Well, it hasn't gone anywhere because most of the time when we're voting on a staircase, we're only voting on the portion of the staircase that lands in our jurisdiction.
Yeah, and I think it would be the simplest thing would be just have a flat fee for that.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
Whatever that is. Question that I had when I was thinking about this is we've granted a lot of permits for staircases, never imposed a fee. Some of them have been there for years and years. We're gonna have a problem all of a sudden sending people bills.
I don't know. You'll find that out when you do it.
Okay.
Well, it seems if they haven't gone up in 30 years, we definitely should add some more on, but if we shouldn't double it next year. We should do some increments, like in the next 3 years, we'll go up a little bit. So we're not just gonna.
Well, just so everybody understands, fees basically are not intended as a money-making thing. The cost of a fee should represent the overhead attached to adjudicating that fee. That's really where it's at.
But I would look at a lot of these as lease fees.
Yeah, I mean, we
You know, 'cause
depend on lease
Moorings
fees.
mooring is taking up a spot
Yeah,
on the bottom line, it's a lease.
But with, I think that overhead, with that increase, our costs have been increasing over the last 30
Oh,
years,
sure.
and the
No, they
last
have.
2 or 3 years. So I mean, John, you mentioned earlier 20% or 50%. I kind of agree with David that maybe it's a 20 or 30, kind of get a feel for it. And, you know, not go over the top, but also make sure we're covering our costs.
So perhaps there should be a review every so often, maybe every 1 to 2 years. 1 to 3 years, there should be a review of where we stand and then discuss it and decide if any changes need to be made.
Yeah,
But perhaps an organized review.
you're right, Susan, but what I've seen is, you know, as boards change, and there was a review back several years ago, but it was a totally different board. Then a new board comes in and this kind of thing doesn't really come around
Well,
until the board's been in place.
Maybe that's a resolution.
there's a couple ways of doing this. One is to have a 3 or 5 year review on fees. The other is if we're looking at these things like moorings and that as a lease, you could do like we have in Lacey Point or other places. You have an automatic escalator. And then every 5 years, we basically reset and make sure that we're, you know, we're sort of keeping up with the cost of living.
I like that. There's an automatic, and we don't also forget about it for 20 years.
And it's an automatic that the public is aware of.
Right.
Okay, you know, when you have a lease with somebody, they know that next year the lease is going to be, you know, the monthly rents or the annual rents are going to be X. Unless you've gone through a review process and you've changed them.
That makes sense.
Okay. So we'll put together some suggestions and talk about it the next meeting.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, John.
That's it for old business. Committee reports, we have Georgica, a request from InterScience on behalf of 25 Cove Hollow Farm Road LLC and 25 Cove Hollow Farm Unicorn. Oh,
It's the same.
robot is that? Okay.
It's the same. Any case,
Close out the permit.
this is pretty straightforward. I believe this was not just a Phragmites removal. I think there was also a re-veg portion of this. But neither case. Last I looked at this, I do believe there was some fencing that was erected illegally that the village had addressed. And basically, I think the only thing that would hold us up closing this out is to make sure the fence is gone. I can contact Jim Walker. That's who's handling this.
So table this until we find that out.
Yeah, because actually this came up at our last meeting.
Yes.
On Georgia, the pond was relet today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, when we let it, when the heck was it?
Storm on Wednesday.
Did you happen to take any pictures, Jim?
Storm over the weekend.
Jim, did you take any pictures today? Were you there?
I did,
Would you send some to me, please?
perhaps.
So you'll send them to me? Yes?
Susan,
Go try.
They're good for the website.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm really not thinking about the website right now. Okay, any case, we let it, this past month, it stayed open for exactly 11 days and then it closed. And even today, it was still washing over the saddle. But what did happen is when it did close up there a week or 10 days ago, it closed up on a really strong, like south wind, and it just impounded the water back in there. I don't know when anybody driving past like, in Wayne-Scott there noticed the pond really came up and then stayed there. So we opened it today. It seems to be flowing pretty good. And we'll see how long it lasts. Like you said, we have a storm coming up on Wednesday. But we were originally going to do this Friday. And the reason we didn't was because we were going to get the storm yesterday. So listen,
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature. I think if you wait and say, I'm not going to let it until I don't see any storms, I think what we'll be looking at is not being able to let it because the piping plover. So.
All right. 3 Mile Harbor, we have a notice from Drew Bennett on behalf of Gardeners Marina, Harbor Lands LLC, 35 3 Mile Harbor Road, informing the trustees of proposed improvements to the facility. The trustee permit was not submitted as it is not within the trustee jurisdiction.
This is a basin, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yes, there's no.
The only jurisdiction that we have are the docks that are outside.
That are outside.
They not doing anything with those?
No, they're demolishing the clubhouse, rebuilding the clubhouse, constructing a storage building, working on the inside of the basin, bulkheading on the inside of the basin, parking access improvements, bulkheading for all inside the basin, and adding an IA system. So there's a letter from Jim McCaffrey from 2004 with stating the trustees have no jurisdiction inside the basin. It was a dugout basin, similar to the Shagwam. So this was just a letter informing us of that.
All right. Aquaculture, we have communication from Christine Ganesh, REHABs and Lion Head Ponds.
Allison, can you put those pictures up?
Certainly.
Thanks.
Give me one moment.
There's 2 small ponds just to the west of the Hog Creek Inlet, within sort of the Lionhead Association property. And I got an email from Christine Ganesh that one of them had a muddy color to it since the end of the summer. And she sent some samples to the Gobler lab in Southampton, and they detected some harmful algal bloom material in there. So she sent an email to me asking if, we would perhaps ask Chris if he might check those ponds next year for harmful algal blooms when he's checking Hog Creek as well. Kind of got back to her and said we'd have to discuss that and address that if when we speak to Chris about the 2023 sampling protocols. But Chris is going to speak by Zoom to the association, the Lionhead Association, about, I guess, his work and, what he can do for what his work is with harmful algal blooms on December 6th, 5 o'clock. And Melissa Winslow will also be part of that call, just informing the residents of Lionhead Association about the IA systems and the rebates that are available for them, and try to encourage more people within the association to upgrade their sanitary systems. So I thought this was something, I don't know what the ownership status of those ponds
I don't
are.
think they're trustee ponds, and I'm not sure I think they are man-made ponds.
Years ago, when I was, when I served on the committee for Hog Creek, I walked the property because there was an issue with the house that was being worked on, and these ponds are locked in, as you can see. And I was told, I think it was Bruce Horwath, that at one time they were open to the water, the main body of water, and they had closed up. So I'm kind of, are they fed by the ground, I guess?
Well, it's groundwater is what you're looking at there, Susan.
Right, but they're locked in, so there's no real escape for it, for any drainage or any flow of water in and out of the harbor. So I'm not surprised that there's algal blooms in here.
Yeah, in fact, Bruce Horwath had a couple of projects on there. And, it was one of those things. Was it really our jurisdiction?
Well, it may be, it may not be. I thought we do have an interest in water bodies and harmful algal blooms. It is a pond. We do own ponds. We don't own some ponds, but, you know, I thought it was be of interest to the board and to keep on top of it, be aware of it, and, you know, do what we can to.
Well, are you saying that we want the trustees to pick up the tab for testing in these water bodies?
I'm not going that far.
Okay, because here's
Chris may, you know, he does test Hog Creek anyway. He may throw it in, maybe Lionhead and kick in.
it would be one of those things. I think it would be behoove Lionhead, because, you know, the slippery slope we're on here, there are a lot of ponds in and around East Hampton. The public has become aware of the health of the water bodies, and everybody wants to see testing. Everybody wants to see action plans. And I think it's very easy for us to inadvertently get sucked into projects that we're not really going to want to or be prepared to finance in the long term.
Well, why don't we see what this would entail in terms of financial commitment to include, and see if perhaps the Lionheads Association would contribute to helping us with Gobler if we decided to go that route.
Yeah, I agree, Susan. I don't think we really have to worry about this too soon, because we hear Chris's report usually around March. Time around the end of March or April, we talk to him about what we're going to do in 2023. The following year, I think that's the time to address this. You know,
I think it's important that we're aware of it. I think that I'm grateful to Christine for bringing it to our attention. And as you say, we are concerned about water quality in general. So I'm happy to know that we have eyes looking to see what else is going on in our community.
Yeah, and it's good to have the streams of communication too. I was appreciative of Christine for getting in touch with me about it.
Yeah, it's good.
And, you know, I can send the Zoom link out to the board if anybody wants to listen in on the 6th. Might be interesting to hear, you know.
Yeah. Also Surfrider, they check ponds and water. Maybe they get in touch with Surfrider.
That's true. Surfrider could add.
You can look up there yourself and you see the development there. There are lawns that go straight down to the ponds.
Yeah, the water.
Do they really want us to get involved? Yeah.
Well, you know, they probably would like everybody to get involved.
Well,
Members
I
of the
know there's been
association.
several of those properties just in the last few years have been redeveloped. And, you know, the town is ticking them off as far as upgrading septic systems, providing pretty robust buffers and stuff along those ponds. But I think the dilemma you have with a pond like that, one, it's very shallow. It's an impound, so there is no exchange with the bay or anything. And it's not quite fresh when you get down there. You know, the plant community is sort of a brackish water plant community.
There's probably wash over there in an extreme northeast.
Yeah, I would expect there would.
The residence that's right underneath the Swan Pond temporarily closed, that house that's here and it leads out, you see the pathway that's going out to the bay. I was down to this house when it was being painted and renovated, and it sits relatively close, as you can see, to the pond. There was quite a hefty amount of Phragmites there when we were there. And I'm going back to maybe 2017, 18, when Bruce Harwith walked the property with us. But there was a lot of growth, vegetation here.
Might have been stopping up some nutrients.
Yeah,
really.
yeah, actually,
I think Bruce has done some cuttings in there since then.
there was,
Yeah.
there was one I looked at with him. It's going back a few years ago. Where that little icon is, it was actually on the other end of the pond, I think. Was the one-
Yeah, I think that's the house Susan talking about.
Yeah.
Right here, the Swan, right underneath the Swan Pond, it does not have a pool. And you can see the walkway that leads out to the bay. This house, we came to see this particular property and walk the property. It has gorgeous views. It's a great location. But this entire strip here, the people who were in the association from Bay Inlet all the way around the pond going up to Swan Pond, the sign where that house is, this was completely covered, growing Phragmites, and on the other side as well. And he, I believe, was advocating for Phragmites to be cut along the pond because they were growing rather rapidly and becoming quite invasive. That's why I was there as a trustee, to see what it had looked like. I actually years ago took pictures of it.
Right, so let's see where it goes. All right, and we have conditional shellfish area openings for 2023.
Anybody contact the office that you know of, Arlene, about the conditional?
No, not at all, not at all.
And I thought we had decided to.
We thought, yeah, it would be a lot of work for very little gain, if any, to open it again or work with the DEC to keep it open this winter.
Which area in particular are you?
So more or less from the culvert north.
Okay,
Acaponic, that little leg up there.
Mhm.
Only got feedback from one bayman that tried to go up there and see what was around and didn't really find much of anything. Just wasn't too surprising. The only reason I picked that area originally was it was really the only area that made any sense, you know. And there had been at one point, probably 25 or 30 years ago, a set of scallops up there, which was unusual, but they did set up there, so we tried it out.
Mhm.
See if we get any feedback now that we've decided not to go ahead with it.
Well, listen, it's one of those things. If somebody comes, if one of the commercial community or whatever comes to us and says, hey, I've done a little research here, a little like powering, we can always look at this next year.
Yeah. So the DC's asked to be notified by the 30th. I mean, I can send them an email if you want.
I think it's just sending them an email that says that this time we don't have any additional openings.
Try to
that we'd
hold
like to
out,
see.
hope, you know, let us know next year, we might be interested.
Okay. Move on to records. Thumb drives as part of the application process for construction application.
This was something that Allison was going to address us with, which I think is a great idea. It's just one extra step for the applicant, but so many departments use thumb drives. I don't know, Allison, if you can hear us.
I can.
Would you want to jump in and tell us about this? Because it's an extra step, but it would serve us very well.
Sure. So we had recently received an application, and part of their process was they provided us with the hard copies that we require, but they also very generously provided us with a thumb drive with all of the application documentation already in digital format, which made it very simple for me to pass it on to the committee in a digital manner. And I had noticed when I was reviewing the ZBA calendar that you all were discussing previously, that part of their requirements, they already require that applicants provide them with digital copies in the form of a thumb drive. So it seemed to me that it may be beneficial to tack on to that if most of our applicants need to get ZBA permission anyway, that it really would be something they're already doing, and it would benefit us because we would have it digitally as well as the hard copy, and it would make for easy transmission back and forth between the committees, via email, but also for us to have when we're attaching it to the permits once we write them up and everything.
How do you do it now? You have to scan and scan?
Correct. So anytime we're passing them, we receive the hard copies. Anytime we're passing them on to you all via email and digitally, we scan everything in to the computer. What this could do is we don't have the ability to scan the very large surveys that are provided to us. And so those, we have as hard copy, which is fine. But one of the things that I noticed was that the digital copy was on that drive, and that could be helpful for viewing, not only for you all at home, but also in this capacity in the meetings where if we need to share the survey, whereas you might be looking at it on the table, it's also possible to share on the screens digitally during the meetings as well. So if you feel that would be helpful, it may be something to consider, or for the board to consider, requiring that as part of the process as well. And I don't think it would be too much trouble for applicants, as most of them are utilizing the computers to generate the rest of their applications anyway. You just stick the thumb drive in, and then it would be helpful.
Allison, have you considered how you're going to store and keep track of these?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been doing when we receive the ones from South Fork Wind is they end up in a lockbox in the closet. The other thing I was thinking is we can have either a specific drawer or whatnot with them, or they end up with the files. That part would still be, the logistics of that would still have to be figured out, but they could all be labeled when they come in, or part of the requirements would be that those are labeled when they provide them to us. And then either a dedicated drawer with the either project name, last name, tax map, something to identify it, or the permit number once it's permitted. And if it's permitted, that would be figured out. But I do think there are ways for us to figure out how to file them efficiently.
Yeah. Hey, Allison, from personal experience, as soon as you detach that thumb drive from the rest of the file, that's the beginning of creating a mess for yourself. I think if there's a way to keep those thumb drives and the paper file together, thumb drive fits in a little pouch.
That would be fine too.
I think that may be the best way of doing it. And what you got to get at is it's a little like storing your friggin' car keys. Obscure place, and when you need those car keys, you find yourself fishing through them, and you only labeled half of them, and the one you're looking for is not labeled.
Hey, I am all for putting them in the files if that works. If you guys are down for asking for, in agreement with asking for thumb drives, we can absolutely put them in little in those little manila. I don't know what you call them, that have the little envelopes that have the seal on them, and put them with the files. That's fine.
Maybe we can invent and patent.
Can I tell you what? I'm pretty sure they make like files and have a little pouch or whatever that you can tuck the thing into. Otherwise, we've instituted something that's great, but becomes useless to us as soon as we're done with that thumb drive.
No. I agree. It should remain with the file.
No, it was just a thought that.
But I think the overall thought of having a thumb drive with everything on it, except for large surveys, is going to be very helpful. It's easy and it works beautifully. And they're already having to do it for their applications, many of them. And it's easier for them. It's easier for our office. So I think it's a great idea. And I appreciate Allison coming up with it. You're always coming up with great ideas.
Thank you. Just trying to, make things digital because that's where everything else is headed in the world. So
What's the lifespan of the information on a thumb drive? Does anybody
John
know?
will be off the board by then.
yeah, I have no idea.
Off the earth.
I have no, in 5 years, the thumb drives are going to be obsolete anyway, and there'll be some newer technology. It'll be embedded in our thumbs and we'll just have to scan our thumbs. So
Don't tell the applicant that.
Okay, thank you. Move on to education. David Rattray's doing a presentation at John Germain Library, Plain Sight Project, Study of Slavery on Long Island. Is that from you, Susan?
I added that I sent this email link out to everybody because I was speaking to him this past week. And he's been working on the In Plain Sight project with Donna Marie Barnes. So I thought if anybody was interested to learn more about slavery in our community and specifically in Sag Harbor, you might want to sign up for that.
When is that?
December 11th?
Yes, and David Cataletto signed up for it. It is going to be, here's the letter I sent to all of you.
Yeah.
I think it's December 11th and it's, I'd have to open up the link.
2:00, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 2:00.
Okay, but I saved a seat in my name, but I will not be able to attend physically. So if someone wants my seat, they only had 17 seats left. I took one, so there were 16. Then David took one. Then it's down to 15. So if you want,
If you've got a free one, I'm interested.
okay, well, then Jim, you take my seat.
Well, there may be more spots. I signed up for, I don't know when, I think there were 14 or 15 left when I signed up.
When did you sign up, John?
Like that day you sent that email.
Oh, okay, good. David said that there will be some videotaping, I think of it, but I'm going to call him and confirm because that's what I'll watch. I think if there is a videotape that they'll put it on YouTube, but it's always better to be there live and in person so you can ask questions if they have a question and answer period. But I think it'll be very interesting and well worth our time and energy to watch it or go there in person. It's a small room, David said, so they don't have that many seats, but I'm giving up my seat to somebody who wants it.
Okay, thank you. Move on to administrative. There are no bills to be paid. CDs, we have a CD ending in 6683. It's a 180-day maturity. And it will mature on 11/26. Shall it be renewed?
Well, that was the other day.
This is 480 days.
Yeah. Hey, Francis, can you basically sit down with the bank on these CDs? Ben and I went over the financials last week, and the one thing that stood out was that even though the interest rates have creeped up a little bit, none of these CDs seem to have earned very much. And whether we can put them in some no risk or a different CD that gets us a little more interest on it.
Do you think we should revisit that thing that Francis distributed a couple of years ago that we never?
I'm going to be honest with you. You know what? Given the way the stock market has gone since then, those products may, in all probability, wouldn't be.
But it would be interesting.
Stocks, though, they're mostly in municipal bonds.
It would be interesting to review that in light of what has happened to the stock market recently, because the stock market, one thing that's, I think, to the better of this is that the stock market is down. It may go down more, but it's not going to go down from what it was. So we're at kind of a low point in the market.
We're at a low point, but you know what? As a board, we have a fiduciary responsibility to not take risks with the public's money. Okay, but I think given the fact that interest rates are up, the earning ability of some of these CDs, which have been hovering around the 1% area, I think we can do better than we're doing.
There's savings accounts with
right now.
triple that rate right now in treasury bills, and there's other options out there
Yeah.
that we could explore.
If we can invest.
Yeah, no, we can, but you don't want to, I mean, I'm on other boards where,
But I think, don't we have some kind of a restriction by being a municipal
Yeah.
structure?
What were you gonna say, Jim, about other boards?
well, no, I'm on other boards where we do have some policy in place
Mhm.
that we're only allowed to invest a certain portion of our portfolio
Mhm.
in anything that shows any sort of risk, and I would assume ours is a no risk.
Yeah.
Everything's got to be insured.
There's no risk options out there. And then Jim and I, looking at the bills, kind of figured out how much we need to keep in our checking account at all times, which allocates a good amount of cash that could be invested.
Yeah,
That's
we're at
just
a
sitting
point-
there.
We're at a point right now where we're carrying balances in our checking that honestly we don't need to carry. We could basically roll into another CD.
Is there such thing as a financial advisor for municipalities?
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, I've asked a few, they seem to think they could just help us as a charity, but can't work for us.
Yeah.
From what I've found out. But you think there should be someone out there that specializes in that. But it seems tricky. I've hit some dead ends looking into that.
Which is probably something we should keep at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've missed out on a lot of opportunities.
But we haven't lost any money, so.
That's true.
Nothing wrong with that.
Better than I did.
Okay, so this one here will roll over.
Yes.
You know the amount of that one?
I do not.
No. I think, Jim, we looked it up, but.
Okay. Did we vote on it? All in favor?
No, we did not vote on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Now we have minutes from the meeting November 14th, 2022.
I believe I read them all, Allison, or that particular date, and
Yes, you did. That's correct.
I read them also. They're accurate. I'll make a motion. We accept those minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to discuss?
Did everyone have a lovely Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
You want to do that?
Yeah, I at a recent Peconic Estuary Program Technical Advisory Committee meeting, there were a few presentations, and one was by a woman at the DEC hydrodynamic modification study, which looked at basically environmental dredging and tried to determine what impact it had on smaller water bodies. It's a 10-minute presentation, so it might be interesting for the board to take a look at, and maybe the public might be interested too. Something that we talk about a lot.
Mhm.
So I thought,
Where's that, John?
yeah, it was a Peconic Estuary program.
Is it on YouTube or?
John sent us the link for it.
Can you cue it up, Allison?
I can. Give me 2 moments to pop it up. It's right here. Let me just share my screen and I will start it.
I think I sent
Send it to me. I didn't get a chance to look at it.
John, you sent it to all of us in an email, the link for it. I actually still have it up on my computer.
What was the date of that?
The date that you sent it?
Yeah.
Hold on and let me roam back
Okay.
to my computer. It was, oh, there you go. Now I can't read the date. Okay.
Do you want me to play it?
Yes, please. No sound.
Say that one more time. You can't hear my sound from me.
There's
playing
no
it?
sound.
Oh, I don't. So it was playing though. I'm not sure what happened there.
Do you want me to pull it up?
Matt, do you know how to get sound on this thing from a YouTube video?
Hey,
Oh, hold on one.
Alice.
It's all the way high. Go ahead, Matt.
No, you just answered my question.
Yeah, it's not on mute on the website, and my computer is also not on mute, so I'm not sure how to make that.
If you'd like, I can pull it up and share my screen.
Sure, I'll stop sharing and then you can try. Sure, I'm gonna
You
stop
can
sharing right
pull-
now.
Okay, let me go to
You'll probably do the same.
hold on one second here.
Yeah, I have a feeling it might do the same, but we'll see.
Hold on one second. I had it up here. Oh gosh, no, where did I put it? I don't need this. Oops.
Is there a specific body of water they're thinking of doing this in, or just kind of in general, just the concept of it?
It's the concept of it. They had different scenarios, like a very large body of water to a small body of water. And then they had sort of a flow through situation from two large bodies of water. So it flowed from a large to a large through a small. They had a couple of different scenarios that they evaluated. And basically what it showed was that the small body of water that you were trying to improve, if you will, by mixing it with the large, more water from the large bodies, it didn't really have much of an impact on it. And one of the most interesting things I thought was, I heard was that in the Q&A afterwards, Matt Richards from the DEC, who's one of the shellfish samplers who does the fecal coliform study,
you got your slides going?
has looked at, they sample Little Northwest Creek, for example. They sample outside the creek. And they've noticed that in like that, where a creek has been opened up, there's really no difference, no change in their fecal coliform readings outside the creek. Say, if a creek's opened up, sometimes they'll see a little bit of difference initially, but very quickly it'll fall back to the same readings they've generally been.
You got your slides going?
So, I mean, I guess the takeaway is that, environmental dredging, if you will, is not necessarily all it's cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm. We've been having that discussion with Mike Bettini and the Nature Preserve Committee with David Cataletto, Jim Grimes, and I have been at those meetings to talk about Chatfield's Hole. I have my screen up and I'll try to do this with you. Like, I pulled it up to 49:33. I think that begins at 50. So if I can share my screen, share screen, and hopefully this will work. I'm sorry to interrupt you, John.
Okay, can you see it?
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So can you see that?
Everybody hear me all right?
Yes, yes.
All right. Let me get the sound up.
Great.
Can you
so first,
hear it?
To Sarah and Joyce and the rest of the team for allowing me to present today.
Can hear
For those who don't know me, my name is Michelle Golden. I work for DEC in the Division of Water on the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan. And I'm just going to present our hydrodynamic classification feasibility study that we are in the stages of wrapping up. So hydro modifications, just for those that don't know, or it could also be called water exchange projects. They alter the flow of water with the aim of flushing out nitrogen buildup in abatements, or, in our case, the aim is to flush out the nitrogen. Examples of hydro modifications are barrier removals, pipe and pump dredging, culvert removal. There's also like daylighting of streams. For this study in particular, we're looking at mostly engineered controls, which are those pipe and pump or tide gates, things like that. Oh, and I'm sorry, you can probably see this too. So we decided to do this study for a couple reasons. The first being that it is a scope item. So for those of you who are not familiar with LINAP, we are guided by a scope, and so a scope of work. And this is one of the items of the scope of work to look at hydrodynamic modifications. And then in addition, we know from the Suffolk County subwatershed wastewater plans that just some water bodies might need more than land-based reduction to meet their reduction goals. So we worked with Suffolk County to put together a proposal for this study with the goals of understanding the costs associated with hydrodynamic modifications based on different embayment characteristics that would include the operation and maintenance costs. We wanted to understand ecological impacts, so changes in salinity and nutrients and temperature, the socioeconomic impacts, so if people might lose beaches or other public access and environmental justice communities, how flushing time would change based on a modification, and then how tidal action could have an effect on any proposed alterations. So we ended up getting funding through EPA's Long Island Sound study. So most of the study is for the North Shore of Long Island, just because that's where that group is. And we did hire a consultant, Dewberry, to complete this study for us. So the overall goal of the study is to better understand hydrodynamic modifications and determine the benefits and drawbacks, implementing them to achieve load reduction goals. And in the end, our deliverable is going to be a document that provides guidance and considerations to communities that are considering hydrodynamic or water exchange projects. So we're looking at more than just the water quality aspect. We're looking at if something could actually be constructed, environmental impact, social acceptance, so more than just how nitrogen might be affected. And then just to be clear, we're doing, this is a very high level study of the impacts of hydrodynamic modifications. We looked at different water body types and then different types of modification projects to try to get a general sense of how these hydro modifications might impact water bodies. We are not doing, or we did not do like individual site specific feasibility studies to determine if one such project would be applicable. So we looked at 3 different types of water bodies. The first being a harbor with a sand spit. As you can see from these images, the arrows kind of show the flow of water. And so with a sand spit at the top here, it kind of prevents adequate water exchange between in this case, it's the Sound because we're on the North Shore, and the water body. Then we looked at a shallow open harbor. And so with there's not adequate circulation here with the shallow water. And then the last one we looked at was a tidal stream or inlet where this very narrow opening might prevent some flow exchange. And so we decided on these 3 water bodies in consultation with Suffolk County because there's more than one instance of these types of water bodies across the island. And so again, it gives us that high level overview. And then we looked at different types of water exchange practices. And so we looked at 5 different types, one being environmental dredging, where we're actually opening up the channels where there might be some sold in areas or just meanders that aren't large enough for water to flow accurately. So in the image, this red area would be dredged out, so more flow comes in. Then we looked at a pipe with a pump. So again, in the narrow opening, you might add a pipe with a pump to increase flow. Right here's the pipe and pump into that water body. Similar to a pipe and pump, just no pump associated with this or a culvert, so it just gives the water an additional place to essentially flow in. A culvert with a tide gate, so this allows water to come out with the tide, but then the gate would close after and not come back in. And then we have full removal of a sand spit or other obstruction that might be not allowing a flow of water. So 3 types of water bodies with 5 different types of modifications. So to split this up, we kind of did different types of scenarios. So at the harbor with the sand spit, we looked at environmental dredging, a culvert with a tide gate, and then full removal of that sand spit. In the shallow Oakland Harbor, we again looked at environmental dredging. We looked at a pipe and pump where we're pumping water from another water body into the impaired water body, or the opposite, so taking the impaired water body and pumping water into another water body. And then taking that same pipe and just using tidal flow, so no pump associated with it. And then at the tidal stream or inlet category of water body, again, we looked at environmental dredging, pipe with just the tidal flow, and then a pipe with pump flow. And what we were looking at as to actually run these scenarios, we looked at residence time. And so residence time is a measure of how water moves through a system and how long a parcel of water might remain at a given location. For those of you familiar with the Suffolk County Watershed Plan, residence time is part of their plan, and that's how they calculated the reductions that are needed at water bodies. So Dewberry, our consultant, used ESP to model all these scenarios and to determine the residence time. And so the longer it takes to flush out a substance, the longer the pollutant stays in the system. And so we were looking at a reduction in the residence time, which could indicate that water quality would be improved. And so they looked at the change in residence time to reduce a pollutant to 10% of the original concentration, and then they would compare the baseline, so what residence time of a water body was before we put in the modification for the project, and then what it was after we implemented that. And then just as a visual on this image, the red is in the water body is showing where pollutant might be, the blue being, cleaner water. At the bottom here, it's pretty hard to see, but there's like a pump that would connect these 2 water bodies to either pump water body water from this water in here to try to push water up and out, or the opposite. You could pump the other way to push it out this way. This was just one of the scenarios that we looked at.
Susan, can you widescreen that?
And so, like I said, we're wrapping up this project, so we do have some findings to talk about. I'm going to go over
to the right.
modification type and what we found.
To the right?
So for environmental
Susan,
dredging,
hover over the picture.
improvement and
You
residence
see
time.
that thing in the corner, kind of right-hand side? Nope, one more over, yep.
Cases or remove the source of
I'm sorry.
sediment in some cases. But you would really have to do a detailed water quality modeling to indicate what improvements you might really get in water quality. For a culvert or a tidal pipe, again, provides a little improvement in the residence time for any of the water bodies, but there will be localized residence time improvement in, very close to where the pipe comes in to the water body. And then if, depending on the tide cycle, if you have the pipe connected to another water body that has a different tide cycle, then you might have more improvement.
Hey, guys, I got to interrupt this.
During the sand spit, again, does not provide much
You got
improvement.
me a
It's
cruise.
a localized improvement behind
Oh,
the
no
sand
way.
spit.
Hey, congratulations.
Right, the pipe with the pump was the one that showed that it could provide some improvement. That would be
Did you ask for this to stop?
No, Chris just had a baby.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Congratulations, baby girl. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so now that I've done this, skip ad. Uh-oh. Now,
Music.
wait, I'm gonna have to bring you back. Matt, can you hear me?
Yes.
What did I do wrong?
I think we're good. We get the gist.
Yeah, I think John's
Okay, so-
synopsis was perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, look at this.
All right, the
It's
board.
terrible. I don't know how to turn it off.
Susan, we're not gonna watch the rest of it.
No, it's all good. I think we know the ending.
There.
You got the drift.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm trying to turn this off and I don't know that there you go. Here I am. Okay. You all feel relaxed now?
Anything else?
Close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Matt.
And congratulations
You're
to
welcome.
Chris.